overweight. When I told my mother that I wanted to speak about fat phobia and the effects it's having on society, she looked at me and said, "You are not fat enough to talk about that." I didn't know whether to be offended or flattered. Imagine being told that you are not fat enough to do something. I get where she's coming from. I'm not 600 pounds, but with mean, cruel, and judgmental peers and adults, you don't have to be. The world is no longer big enough for me and them. Literally. Bullying has become an epidemic in America, and overweight people are a primary target. Moreover, it's not just children. Grown adults discriminate against fat people just as often as children do. Today, I'm going to weigh on the problems between people of all sizes, how these problems affect everyone, and what we can do as a community to make the world a more loving and inclusive place. The Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluations estimates that 160 million Americans are either obese or overweight, 13% of the world total. That's a lot of fat people in one country. Despite over half of Americans being fat, many people still find it uncomfortable, unsettling, or undesirable. People who are not fat look at fat people and say, "Oh, look at the obvious lack of willpower, the sedentary lifestyle, the obvious insecurity." What they do not see are people who are fat because of genes passed down from their parents, insufficient sleep, or medications that they have to take. People who would still gain weight if they never put a bite of food in their mouths. That is the biggest misconception about fat people, but no matter the circumstances, hating on someone for their weight is never okay. According to Health Day reporter Amanda Gardner, 61% of people do not consider negative remarks about a person's weight to be offensive. There are people who aim to bully and make you feel bad, and then there are some who are trying so hard to not be fat-phobic to the point where they feel like just saying the word is pulling the pin on a grenade. And at any moment, our self-esteem will just shatter just by hearing the word fat. So they try to convince us that we're not fat. "Oh, you're not fat. You're beautiful." I'm sorry, what? Allow me to explain my grievance with this statement. When you say that, you imply that you cannot be both. Intentional or not, a statement like that reinforces the idea that fatter bodies aren't beautiful. So why should we care? So many people say that it is cliche to speak about fat phobia, that it's something that has been done 1,000 times before. Is self-esteem, eating disorders, and suicide enough to warrant further action? According to a study done by Washington EDU's obesity researchers, 40% of children between the ages of 5 and 10 want to be thinner. I was 5 the first time we had to be weighed in gym. My weight was written on the whiteboard for all the class to see. Haley Joel Osment got panicky when he saw dead people. I get panicky when I see scales because I can remember the feeling of my classmates' eyes boring into the back of my head as I walked as quickly as I could back to my seat. Because the sooner I could sit down, the sooner they would stop looking at me and start looking at the next poor soul in that line who was a little different. And it does not get better with age, because 78% of teens between the ages of 13 and 17 want to be thinner. That is why at least 30 million people of all ages and genders suffer from an eating disorder in the United States. It is cliche, because millions of people are bullied for their weight every day. Allow me to say that again. Millions of people are bullied for their weight every day. Cliche or not, promoting self-love and body positivity is a necessity, because the Center for Advancing Health found that suicidal thoughts were higher in those who considered themselves to be overweight compared to those who didn't. Because the Obesity Action Coalition, in a recent national survey of overweight 6th graders, found that 28% of the boys and 30% of the girls experience daily teasing, bullying, or rejection because of their size. The number doubles for overweight high school students. The summer after 6th grade, I tried out for the volleyball team, and at the end of tryouts, the coach said, "Laura, we think you're very talented, but you need to work on hustling. We're just concerned that a person of your size might not be able to keep up with the rest of the team." I cried a lot after that. In rec ball, I got an award from one of my coaches that said, "Best Hustler." And let me tell you, that felt great. Because if you're still in a rec league in high school, it's because you couldn't make it on a school team. If you're a bigger girl, it's likely because you've been told that somebody of your size cannot keep up with the rest of the team. Is that true, Coach? Or is it just that you weren't willing to give me a chance? I can't lie, though, that volleyball thing really started my desire to prove everyone wrong, and I did. My mom says I'm not fat enough to talk about this. Here I am, Alyssa Cooley in the 2nd grade who stood up at recess and said that fat people could never become models. Well, I'm not a model, but she's in jail. So the only thing that she's sporting is an orange jumpsuit. If this is something that has been said 1,000 times, it needs to be said 1,001 times. Because obviously, nothing has worked yet. I know you are tired of hearing speeches about eating disorders and suicide and bullying and hatred. I am tired of writing them. So, thin people, you may be feeling attacked by all of the people standing out against fat phobia because hashtag not all skinny people, right? But just know that so long as you never make anyone feel as if there is a reason to be ashamed of themselves, you are not a part of the problem. So long as you raise your children to love everyone the same and judge employees based on work ethic and not on size, you are not a part of the problem. Understand that fat is not a bad word, and a higher BMI doesn't mean you shouldn't hire them, and the number on the scale is not a kill streak. Fat people do not generalize thin people, because there are so many of them who are not a part of this problem. But there will always be some who feel the need to make you feel worthless. Never listen to them. Keep your head up high and continue forward. But don't feel like you have to be the be-all, end-all. You have no obligation to change any of the world's views, as long as you are content and happy with yourself. Willow Dean from the Netflix movie Dumplin' put it perfectly when she said, I am not the Joan of Arc of fat girls. I did not stand before you today imagining that I would change the world, but if I can change just one mind, then that would be a good start. With children and adults alike feeling battered down by the media and our peers' expectations, it is crucial that we hold our heads up high and carefully consider the weight of our words on others. Because I may be the biggest girl on my volleyball team, but I still go to every practice and work just as hard as the other girls. Because I knew that coming on here and talking about this would open up a new vulnerability that I've never shown before, but I still did it. Because there are brave people who go out every day and open themselves to criticism, even though it's scary. Because there are people who haven't reached this self-confidence yet and they are still unhappy with themselves. So no, we are not going to apologize for being cliche. Do you see now why it's so hard to do so? Because it is so easy to dislike yourself. And once you finally make the leap to self-love and acceptance, it feels like you can finally breathe. So yeah, I am overweight, but I am also loud and obnoxious, and maybe we are cliche, but most of all, we are proud, and we are beautiful. So please, do not take that away from us.